Okay, so let's go ahead and create the USB ports for this. So to do this, it's actually going to be pretty simple. We have an area right here in the front view where we can create some USB ports. So we've got ourselves 3 USB ports and a FireWire port that we need to create. So let's go ahead and create these USB ports now in this video. Alright, so pretty simple. What I'm going to do is I'm going to delete, I'm going to get rid of this edge, and that edge right there that's cutting through the middle of my USB ports. I don't want those right there. Okay, so with those selected, I'm going to go ahead and simply hit delete on the keyboard. I'm going to take these edges here, which are going to be the ones for my USB ports. I'm going to go ahead and subdivide evenly once. And I'm going to move this over to the end of the USB ports, maybe somewhere over here will probably work out pretty good. Then I'm going to take these edges, the ones on the top there and the one on the bottom there, and I'm going to subdivide that evenly again. This time in the PPG, I'm going to make sure that I set it to 3 subdivisions because we've got ourselves 3 USB ports. And once that's done, I'm going to have nice even spacing for the USB ports. So basically, USB port 1, 2, and 3 are going to have the same amount of distance or spacing or size, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so I'm going to start off with the middle one here. Alright, so if the middle one's selected, the middle polygon selected here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Inset. I'm just going to adjust this and try to follow the image a little bit here, the image in the front view. And to help me out a little bit better, it helps to bring up our reference. So if I look at my reference image here, I have a reference image. It's basically a close-up of the USB ports. You can see here the USB 2.0 ports. We have these 3 and then the FireWire port over here on the end. So here's the USB ports. Basically, we need to make the hole that the USB connector goes into. Okay, so that's not too hard to do. Again, with the inset tool, I'm basically going to inset this a little bit like this. So I'm looking at my front view, about this much, looks pretty good. Okay, once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and hit Control D to extrude, and I'm going to pull this into the object. How far you want to pull it is really up to you. I'm going to go about this much right here. Looks pretty reasonable to me. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the context menu, and I'm going to hit Duplicate Polygons to duplicate that polygon that's at the back right there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to scale this globally, make sure COG is turned on. I'm going to scale this down a little bit, maybe a little bit more, not too much. I'm trying to go with the image as closely as possible, even though the image is completely pixelated. It's a little bit hard to distinguish detail. So I'm going to hit Control D to extrude, and I'm going to pull this forward. I'm going to make sure it doesn't stick out of the hole like this. It's going to go close to the end of the hole like that. Okay. Then I'm going to use the Inset tool. I'm going to go over here and inset polygons again. And I'm just going to go ahead and make an inset of about this much to make a thin outline. Then I'm going to hit Control D to extrude again. And I'm going to push this in. About that much is good. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to create basically the little plastic piece that goes in there that the USB actually connects to. So I'm going to take this polygon, and again I'm going to use duplicate polygons to make a new one. I'm going to scale this polygon a bit, something like this, make it nice and thin. I'm going to move it over here on this side, something similar to the image. Again, if you need to, use some reference, and if this isn't enough, you can always go on Google Images and do a search for USB ports or USB ports close-ups or something like that. So I'll extrude this again, and I'll pull it out, make sure it doesn't, stick out of the USB port like that. Now to finish this off and make it look pretty good, what I'm going to do is, let me go over here to the maximize the camera view here. I'm going to select this polygon that's on the tip right here, and then I'm going to right click to open a context menu. I'm going to go to select adjacent, and I'm going to select adjacent edges. That's going to select these edges for me. I'm going to hold down shift and hit the equal sign basically to grow the selection. So if you right click and go to grow selection, it's the same thing. And then with those edges selected, I'm going to go to bevel components. I'm going to reduce the distance there and give this a couple of subdivisions for the rounding. And make something like this, so you end up with something that looks like this, nice and soft. Okay. Now for the USB ports, the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to select that edge, hold down Alt middle mouse button, click that edge right there, so you can select the entire ring of edges all the way around, the corners there on the outsides. And I'm going to go to bevel, and I'm going to bevel that a good amount. I think that looks pretty good. That amount of bevel actually looks pretty decent to me. Now I'm going to select the edges that are on the insides, doing the same thing. Hold down the Alt and middle mouse button, and you should get these ring of edges throughout the inside. Then I'm going to go to Bevel Components, and it looks like the default amount of bevel looks pretty good. So I'm going to keep that like so. So there we go. There's our USB port right here. Okay, we've got one done, so we know we don't have to repeat the process over and over again. That would be a huge waste of time. So I'll take this polygon, delete those, so now we have a hole. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and select the back polygon of the first hole we created for the USB port. And I'm going to grow the selection a couple of times so I have these polygons selected. Now what I want to do is I want to be able to select the polygons for the rest of the USB pieces. So to do that easily, we can go over here to the MCP, and you notice there's a button that's pushed in here. It says polygon. Next to that there's a little round button with a black arrow icon. Click on that. That's going to open up a menu, and in this menu, under the custom subcomponent menu set right up here, you want to select Polygon Island. Okay, select Polygon Island, and now what you can do is hold down Shift and you can select these different islands of polygons. Okay, so once that's done, it's pretty simple. We just right click, go to Duplicate Polygons, move the duplicate over. Same technique as the headphone jacks. Hold down Alt and left mouse button click up on top of that corner to snap the pivot point to that vertex. Make sure your vertex snapping is still turned on, which mine's is. I'm going to hold down Control and click the snap to that area right there. Okay. Now do not deselect these polygons. Keep them selected, right click, and duplicate them one more time. So duplicate polygons, move it over. Again, snap the pivot point using the Alt key up there, and then use Control to snap to the corner of that polygon up there. Okay. Again, this is the same stuff that we did when we did the headphone jack, so if you need to review, feel free to go back to that video and review how we did that. Same exact techniques, just we're working with different shaped objects. Once that's done, we need to stick all this stuff together, or weld it all together. So to do that pretty easily, I'm going to come over here and go to my wireframe mode. Okay, I'm going to select those vertices up there, all these vertices on the top of the USB port holes. Okay, so we've got these blue border edges, which we know represent open edges, which is not good. We want them to be yellow. So what I'll do is with those vertices selected, I'll right click, I'll come over here and I'll go to Weld Boundary Points Edges. Okay, I'll click on that. A PPG is going to open up. And what I want to do is take the distance down to 0. That's going to put me back at square one where the border edges are blue and they're not welded together. So what I'm going to do is just very carefully start to go up from 0, and as soon as I do that, you should see the blue edges disappear. When that happens, that means you're good, you did everything correct. So close the PPG, you're done. Okay, so there's our 3 USB ports. Now we do have a FireWire port over here on the end. Okay, if I look at my front view here, there's a FireWire port, and if I look at my reference image, you'll see what it looks like. Now, the FireWire port is the same exact process as the USB port. The only difference is, instead of being shaped like a rectangle, it has kind of this triangular shape down here. So it's the same thing as doing the USB ports with a little bit of modifications. So here's the challenge for you. Try taking a moment to use the same techniques you learned in the previous 2 videos, in this video and the last one with the headphone jacks, and try to create the FireWire port on your own. You should be able to, based on the same techniques that I just showed you. Okay? So just go ahead and try to do it on your own using the same techniques as the USB port. I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera, and I'll meet you in the next video where we'll continue on here with our modeling tasks.